Hi and welcome to the second part of our 2D platformer tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to teach you how to animate your sprites to give them more life and excitement. And I'm going to teach you how to make your player's character face in the direction that you are moving them, all to create a more immersive experience for our player. So the first thing we'll do is I've got my sprite here for my avatar. If I hit the run button, we'll build a quick demo of the game. And here's my game. It's pretty bog standard and it's fairly boring, and that's for many reasons, but one of which is the fact that the player's sprite just feels very static and immobile. It's just, you know, a picture of a stick man. It's not moving, so it's got no sense of life about it. So let me close that down. So what we can do is, if you double click your player's sprite to bring it up in the window and then hit edit image, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit the collapse docks just to bring this up on the main screen. So here's my image of my sprite at the moment. Up the top above the sprite is the sprite animation panel. There's three buttons to the left, which is onion, skinning, loop and play. And to the right we've got a plus button to add another blank frame. If I click that, it creates a blank frame. I can highlight over it, little X comes up. If it goes red, I click it will get rid of that frame. And then in the main frame here, I've got a picture of my current avatar. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move my avatar over actually because it's not quite centered. I'm going to click my avatar in the animation panel, the frame that's got my avatar in. I'm going to hit Command C on my Mac and Command V, or Control C and Control V if you're on PC. And I've copied that onto a second frame. And now what I want to do is edit this frame using my tools, my sprite editing tools over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete its arms, and essentially I'm going to redraw this now to make it a bit more engaging. So I'm going to draw 2 or 3 frames of my sprite walking around. And hopefully you'll draw much better artwork than I am. So there's my first frame, and now I'm going to do the same that I've just done. I'm going to click that and go Command C and Command V, double click the new frame that I've just made, the copy, and I'm going to repeat that process. So essentially I'm going to delete parts of my sprite. And in fact, I'm just going to make a more substantial change there. And like I say, hopefully your sprites will look much better than mine. These are fairly appalling. So now I've got 3 frames here, and if I hit the play button, we can see it previews a little walk cycle there. It's not the best, but it will do. So now I've got a very basic animation. So I'm going to hit the X to close down my sprite. There's my sprite again. Hit X to close that down. And I'm going to click the collapse expand docks to go back to my normal home screen. So now I've got my sprite, what I can do is I'm going to hit the run to build a quick demo, and we'll see now that my player now has a little animated sprite. But there is a problem, because number 1, it's always playing, whether I'm standing still or walking. Number 2, the animation is really quick, so the speed of the animation is too quick. I need to be able to slow it down. And number 3, if I move right, he is walking to the right, but if I press the left button, he doesn't actually change direction. So first of all, let's change the direction that the sprite's facing. To do this, we need to go into the avatar object. And what we're going to do is go into our step code that we previously made. So if we open up our step code over here, again, I'm going to collapse my docs to bring that up in full screen mode. So there's a simple piece of coding we need to put in here. Essentially, we need to tell GameMaker that the image file for our avatar, the sprite itself, we want to flip it horizontally if we start moving left, and then flip it back again if we start moving right. So the way we tell that is we tell GameMaker essentially to scale the sprite on its x-axis, as in its side-to-side axes. So to do that, go into your step code, and underneath the movement code, which starts if place 3 x minus 5, comma y, and keyboard check VK left. So as in, if there's nothing 5 pixels of us, 5 pixels to the left of us, and we press the left key, at the minute we're saying move to the left, but what we want to write in here, just underneath that move to the left, so hit enter to make a new space, is image underscore x scale equals -1. And then if we go down to the next bit of code in our step code where we've put if place 3 x plus 5, comma y, and keyboard check VK right. So essentially, if the place 5 pixels to the right of us is 3 and we're pressing the right key, again, add a new line after the x plus equals 5, and then I want you to write image underscore x scale again, but this time equals 1. So before, with the left, we've written image underscore x scales equals -1. On the right one, it's just 1. So if I zoom in there so you can see that a bit more. There we go. So now we've got that. Let's hit the run button and preview. And now, if this code has worked, then when I press the right key, we're facing right, but when I press the left key, there we go, it's actually flipping my sprite to face the direction I'm moving. Fantastic. So that's worked, but we've still got that problem that the sprite's animation is far too quick, isn't it? So what we're going to do over here is we are going to, I'm going to bring my dock back. Next thing we need to do then is we need to drag in a little bit of coding essentially. So we're going to do this with visual coding this time. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new event in our avatar object. So go add event, and we're going to go key down, and we're going to go no key. So essentially what we're saying is when no key is pressed, and I want you to choose GML visual coding for this, which is the drag and drop coding blocks. And then again, to make life easy, I'm just going to minimize my dock panels. And then underneath the events, the actions tab, I want you to go to the toolbox and I want you to search set sprite. So key down, no key, and then set sprite. Drag that over. Under the sprite at the minute it says no one. Select whatever sprite you've got, which is your avatar. So mine's called sprite 10. So that's all done. And now we need one more thing, so I'm going to scroll back across. We need to add a second event, so add another event, and this time it's key press rather than key down. So key press any, and under key press any, double click that. What we need is we need set sprite again. So let's add our sprite again and repeat that process. Set it to your avatar's sprite. But this time, what we're going to do is we also need a second code block, which is animation speed. So if you type animation speed and it's set animation speed, drag that over, and you can play with the speed here. So I'm going to type in 0.3 rather than 1. So if the speed is 1, then it's normal speed. Anything less than that, and it starts to slow it down. So let's talk through what we've just done then. We've said when no key is being pressed down, set the sprite to our avatar's normal sprite. However, when any key is being pressed, then still set the sprite to our normal sprite, but set the speed to 0.3. In fact, under no key, instead of our, I'm going to set that to frame 1. So let's hit enter. There we go. And now we can see my speed of my animations much slower. And I could tweak that a little bit. So let's go in and let's go back to key press any. Let's set the speed to 0.6. We can have a bit of a faster one. There we go. So now my character faces in the direction that they're moving, and we've got a little animation for when they're walking. Now what I could do if I wanted is I could make a whole other sprite for when they're standing still, an at rest sprite. So let's bring back my ducks. So now I'm going to go back into my sprites and I'm going to make a new sprite. I'm going to make a sprite where they're just stood still. So to do this, I'm going to copy sprite 10. So I'm going to highlight it, control click or left click, and I'm going to go duplicate. And I'm going to call this sprite 10 resting. Oh. Sprite 10 underscore resting. There we go. And I'm going to edit my image here. So I want to make an at rest sprite. So this is a sprite we're going to use when the character isn't moving. So I'm going to delete the 2 frames where the character's walking. And I'm going to create a very quick animation. So click the frame up the top, Command C and Command V to make another frame. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and get their head to bob up and down as they're stood there a little bit. And I might try and get their arms to move a little bit as well. There we go. So I'm just going to add eyes to my poor thing just because I kind of feel like it needs some eyes. There we go. Wonderful. So if I hit play there, it goes a bit crazy. So now what we need to do is we need to go back into our avatar object. So we've got a new sprite for resting, go into our avatar object, and where we've made key down no key, so when we're saying when no key is pressed, let's set the sprite. So set sprite 2, and let's choose our resting sprite now. And now also let's change the animation speed of this resting sprite, because at the moment it's just going to play at full speed. Now one thing I need to do to make the resting sprite play the animation, I need to change it from frame 0 to image underscore index. So under frame, so in set sprite, go to frame and type image underscore index in there. And we can see now that my at rest sprite plays. So he's kind of bopping about when he's not moving. There's one more way that you can actually create animated sprites, and that is to use what's called a sprite sheet. So I'm going to show you how to do that quickly. So go to sprites, let's create a new sprite sheet, a new sprite. It's just an empty blank sprite. So let's import. Navigate to where you've got your sprite sheet. So here's one that I've downloaded earlier from a website. So here's our sprite sheet that we've downloaded from somewhere else, and it's got lots and lots of sprites on. Now what we need to do here is go into edit image, and we need to actually tell it essentially that this is a sprite sheet. So go import strip images, navigate to the file again and click open, and then it's going to come up here with this box to the side, and it's got the frames, and essentially this is asking us, okay, well how many frames are there? So I'm going to increase the number of frames. Number in a row is going to be 3. So there's 3 characters per row. So hopefully you can see here that there's 3 white boxes here. So if I put the number of frames per row up, the number of boxes goes up. I'm only going to have 3 because at the moment I've got 3 frames and 3 per row because I'm only just want one little bit of the walk, so I could show you. The frame width defines how big this frame is in terms of pixels. So at the moment it's set to 32, but that's too big. We want each of these frames, the white boxes, to essentially just cover one of these pictures. So I can see that these are 16 pixels by 16 pixels big. There we go. You can see now there's 3 white boxes around there. So I'm now going to say, okay, that's fine. Convert that. And there we go. It's created from the sprite sheet. It's created the little animation based on those 3 frames. So if you get a sprite sheet, then you can just import it in the same way. So make a new sprite, import rather than edit the image, and then under the image you go convert, import strip image, and then set the frames over wherever your pictures are. Okay, there's one more thing I want to show you to do with your sprites, and that is getting GameMaker to add a view to your character. So at the moment, when we preview our demo, so when we run a demo, we can see the whole level that we've created, and when the character moves, they just move across the screen, and if they go off the edge, they just go off the edge and the game restarts. What we want to do to make the game more immersive is we want to be able to follow our character more closely. So to do that, we're going to add what's called a view to our game. So with my room opened here, I've got the room. I'm going to close down that room manager because we don't need that. With the room open, we scroll down on the left hand side under the inspector to see viewports and cameras. So first of all, tick to enable viewports. So viewports is going to essentially enable you to have a camera that follows your player through the level. And let's set viewport 0 to visible. And we can see there's a white box appeared around all of my level now. So let's change the size of the camera. Let's just make it 600 by 600. And we can see it's made a white box there. And let's have it follow our player object, so our avatar. So under object following, use this drop down menu here and navigate to whatever your object is that you want the camera to follow, normally the player. Beneath that, we've got the horizontal border and we've got the vertical border. Now that's how many pixels, how close you can get to the edge of your view, as in the white line here, before the camera starts moving. So it's 32 pixels horizontally. So I'm going to change that to 128, I think. Likewise 128. So now we've got a view that should hopefully follow the player, and if the player gets to within 128 pixels of the edge of the screen, the camera will start to track with them. So let's just test that out. And there we go. So now, almost much more reminiscent of Super Mario, because now the camera moves with it, which makes it more dynamic and exciting because we can't always see what's just off screen, whereas when we can see the whole level, we know exactly what dangers there are and how to avoid them. So this should keep your player on the edge of their seat much more.